This video was brought to you by NordVPN.
Meep, meep. Meep, meep. Meep, meep.
Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner are the hilariously wild creations of animator Chuck Jones, developed as a satirical parody on the popular chase cartoons of the 1940s, but whom accidentally revolutionized the formula. Debuting in 1949, the iconic duo are amongst the roster of Looney Tunes favorites, with Roadrunner immortalized as a muscle car and the Coyote named by TV Guide as one of TV's 60 nastiest villains. While the pair didn't evolve a great deal visually over time, their stylistic and narrative style did, with Jones creating a template which would change the personality changes, prevalent across 7 decades of shorts, series, and feature films, while diving deep into the creative process of Chuck Jones, and how he, in his words, learned about filmmaking on their... In the mid to late 1930s, the hunter vs prey formula gained popularity in many cartoons and quickly became utilised ad nauseum. At the Schlesinger studio particularly, where cartoons were being produced for Warner Brothers, characters such as Elmer Fudd and Porky Pig were often seen stalking pesky pests such as Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck, while other short-lived characters such as legendary animator Chuck Jones's debut star Sniffles were often pitted against dangerous predators. At Disney, the most prestigious animation house at the time, a trio of little pigs seen in a plight to save their house and their lives from a big bad wolf spawned in the Silly Symphony series and became such a phenomenon that Walt Disney even broke his no sequels rule, releasing a total of 5 cartoons starring them, despite having said you can't top pigs with pigs. By 1940, however, this fairly basic formula was somewhat flipped on its head, with 2 animators from MGM, William Hanna and Joseph Barbera, developing a cat and mouse rivalry, which took audiences by storm, injecting the hunter vs prey formula with insane amounts of gags, action, and violence. The Tom and Jerry cartoons made way for a new, high-powered, fast-paced, and quick-witted chase formula, which left competing animation studios scrambling for exciting new characters to rival them. Disney developed Chip and Dale, a pair of chipmunks used to create trouble for some of the studio's stars. However, Friz Freleng at Schlesinger, which became Warner Brothers Cartoons in 1944, more obviously produced a number of cat vs mouse shorts, before finding popularity by rivaling his creation Sylvester the Cat against Robert Clampett's Tweety Bird, forging a series which ultimately became one of the studio's most critically lauded. By the late 1940s, however, this chase formula itself had become so rampant that it had grown predictable and tired. In Jones's words, every cartoon was the same thing. Everybody was chasing everybody. Jones, a well-known satirist, along with writing partner Michael Maltese, found the formula ripe for the picking on and began brainstorming what they called a takeoff on chasers. Though Jones was best known for putting his own unique spins on Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck, as well as for his own recurring characters such as Pepe Le Pew, he was also proficient in what Maltese called one-shot workaday cartoons, featuring one-time or rarely recurring characters. Exactly what this chase parody was designed to be, a quick send-up of the formula and all the tropes associated. Setting the cartoon in the American Southwest in an ethereal version of Colorado's Monument Valley, the narrative was moved from the suburban backdrop of the typical rivalries to present an unconventional and obscure one. Jones settled on 2 animals native to the setting: the Roadrunner, a small speedy bird often featured in cowboy fables and considered the most famous bird in the Sonoran Desert, and the Coyote, an incredibly intelligent predatory canine seen as a trickster in Native American folklore. As he believed it would be unnatural to find a coyote preying on a roadrunner in the wild, Jones found the pair perfect for his satire, one that all American audiences would surely understand. Jones, in fact, had always wanted to create a coyote character, after being captivated at age 7 by a passage from Mark Twain's semi-autobiographical novel, Roughing It. In the novel, Twain wrote,
"Coyote is a long, slim, sick, and sorry-looking skeleton with a gray wolf skin stretched over it, a tolerably bushy tail that forever sags down with the despairing expression of forsakenness and misery. A furtive and evil eye and a long, sharp face with slightly lifted lip and exposed teeth. He has a general slinking expression all over. The coyote is a living, breathing allegory of want. He is always hungry. He does not mind going 100 miles to breakfast and 150 to dinner, because he is sure to have 3 or 4 days between meals. He is always poor, out of luck, and friendless. He is so spiritless and cowardly, and he is so homely, so scrawny and ribby and coarse-haired and pitiful.
Jones stated, "No one saw it more clearly than Mark Twain. Who could resist such an enchanting creature?" In designing the coyote, Jones looked no further than the Looney Tunes star Bugs Bunny. Bugs was of course a joyful and successful being, full of life and grace. The coyote on the other hand was to be the polar opposite, so Jones simply took Bugs as model and created what he'd call a dissolute Bugs, giving him the same body shape but with bonier arms and legs and a pot belly to complete his hungry look. He was also given unkempt fur and a ragged tail, inspired by Japanese paintings of stormy oceans. Jones noted that making his tail sharp and straight instead of rounded was the difference between the cuddly and the ratty. Jones further noted that the coyote had an identical skull, though with absurdly proud cheeks and similar ears, except a little bit broken. The major design differences in the coyote were brown fur, a long snout, large black nose, and yellow eyes. Jones named the character Wile E. Coyote, a play on words alluding to his cunning or wily persona, though this was not used in the initial short. Original documentation shows that at one point, Jones was even set to call him Don Quixote, a reference to Spanish literary legend Don Quixote. His Roadrunner character, on the other hand, was simply called the Roadrunner, and design-wise, Jones described him as having a small body, a long neck, a large tail, and wings that look as if they should work, but don't, further giving him elongated chicken legs and the chest and pelvis of a human. Despite these exaggerated touches and size, Jones called the character pretty accurate, a rare case in which the animated animal is almost exactly like its living model. Jones admitted that the character has very little personality, and presented him not so much as a being, but as a force, adding, "The secret of drawing the Roadrunner is learning how to draw dust. Just draw a cloud of dust and hook a Roadrunner into it." The eventual film was 1949's Fast and Furious, a cartoon which presented the two foes in an ever-raging battle of strength and wits, and saw the coyote unsuccessfully preying on the Roadrunner with use of constantly backfiring high-tech gadgets. In building the short, Jones and Maltese took the conventions of the chase formula, flipped it over, threw it to the side, bounced it off a bunch of walls, and slammed it down on its butt, essentially creating a formula of their own. One that was so popular that most audiences didn't even get that it was supposed to be a spoof to begin with. When this reaction filtered back to Jones, he was shocked and disappointed at such a misunderstanding. However, knowing a good thing, agreed to make more and give the audience what they wanted, saying, "To hell with that, I'll just go back to making them funny again." Using Fast and Furious as the template, the second short, Beep Beep, was released in 1952, and more followed in rapid succession. Jones wrote that the Roadrunner did not change a lot visually over the years, and in comparing the earlier shorts with the later ones, the only changes appear to be in animation quality, with budgetary restrictions in the middle 60s resulting in cruder work. The later Roadrunner appears with a more rounded face, smaller wings, and a much larger plumage, though it is worth mentioning a middle ground Roadrunner who appears more angular in some of the late 50s, early 60s cartoons. Likewise, the coyote saw very little changes other than those inherent to budget. Jones did, however, give him uneven bony knees a few shorts in to add to his ragged look, which grew more obvious and exaggerated as the series drew on. Otherwise, a darker brown coat is one of the only major changes of the Jones and Maltese era. The overall aesthetics of the cartoons themselves, however, shifted majorly over time, as background artist Maurice Noble found freedom in refining their landscapes and world. Noble worked on over 60 of Jones's cartoons during his time at Warner's, and as one of the creative forces attributed to their distinguishable stylistic designs, which animation historian Michael Barrier noted dominated the films. Starting his career at the Disney studio in the middle 30s, Noble lent realistic realistic artwork to such features as Snow White and Fantasia, and it was this style of realism that he applied to the early Roadrunner and Coyotes. As more and more cartoons were produced and the filmmakers continued to embrace and embellish their eccentric offbeat nature, Noble's style exponentially grew more stylized and surreal, lending an unreal dreamlike quality to them. While the team stuck to the same structure, it did evolve over time. Jones said that some of the early ones were rough because I didn't really know what I was doing, but eventually evolved a kind of rhythm to them, noting that he could lay out a Roadrunner in 2 weeks or less because he got so familiar with the characters. As the characters continued to grow, so did the gags. Jones found that he could squeeze 11 gags into a 7-minute short, and as a way to keep them consistently rolling and self-contained, presented many as blackout gags, a silent film technique where punchlines are followed by a simple cut or fade to black, immediately presenting another gag set sometime in the future with no exposition. In order to keep so many gags continuously fresh and funny and give an in-world logic and grounding to the cartoons, Jones developed a set of 11 explicit rules or disciplines which helped limit storytelling possibilities from growing too complex or over the top. These were: 1. The Roadrunner cannot harm the Coyote except by going meep meep. And 2. No outside force can harm the Coyote, only his own ineptitude or the failure of Acme products. Trains and trucks were the exception from time to time. Jones furthermore called the Coyote a poor bastard, who represented everybody that works in a home workshop, placing the entirety of his failures and injuries on his own incompetence, not on his cocky prey, which he and the audience found incredibly irritating, refraining from creating a clear-cut villain out of either of them. 3. The Coyote could stop any time if he were not a fanatic. This was the most philosophical of disciplines, taking inspiration from philosopher George Santayana, who wrote, "A fanatic is someone who redoubles his effort when he's forgotten his aim." Jones said the Coyote probably started chasing the Roadrunner during some time of incredible famine. Obviously, he doesn't even want the Roadrunner anymore. He's now become compelled to follow something he doesn't even want. If there's a universal thing, it's our attempt to accomplish things that are very small but become big because we can't do them. It was this determination that made the Coyote so lovable and relatable. 4. No dialogue ever, except meep meep and yowling in pain. Much like the other chase films of the era, Jones and Maltese drew enormous inspiration from silent film legends Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton to deliver traditional slapstick gags and body humour by way of silent characters. The only dialogue, of course, would be the Roadrunner's trademark sound, meep meep. This is, of course, not the sound that a real Roadrunner makes, but one which came by way of background artist Paul Julian. Walking down the hallway of Termite Terrace one day with an armful of large background drawings, he let out a series of beep beeps, in Jones's words, blindly trying to clear a route for himself. Jones continued, "When I heard it, I realized that's the sound the Roadrunner should make. It seemed unimaginable to ask anybody but Paul to record this sound. Julian's sound was recorded, sped up, and used for decades after." This rule would go completely ignored in late 1960s comics, which depicted the Roadrunner as a talking character who spoke exclusively in Shakespearean prose, exemplifying why this character always worked best silent. 5. The Roadrunner must stay on the road, for no other reason than that he's a Roadrunner. The only exception to this would be if the Coyote lured him off the road, though as depicted in one of the pair's most classic gag setups, that never quite worked in his favour. 6. All action must be confined to the natural environment of the two characters, the Southwest American desert. Taking them away from their habitat would change the series completely or open entirely new possibilities, which again Jones wanted to limit. Barrier said if any other characters had been introduced, they would have seemed like intruders. 7. All tools, weapons, or mechanical conveniences must be obtained from the Acme Corporation. Jones noted this as one particular rule that kept possibilities limited and prevented improvising, saying that to do so was not nearly as much fun as it was to send away to the Acme factory. There are factories that do supply people with things, so it's perfectly logical and fun for me to imagine that somewhere there is a company that provides absolutely free their inventions to coyotes. 8. Whenever possible, make gravity the coyote's greatest enemy. Both gravity and speed were noted by Jones as the two major forces at work in the cartoons. Plenty of humour could be drawn by allowing the audience to suspend their disbelief in both. This made way for some of the series' most memorable and often copied gags. 9. The coyote is always more humiliated than harmed by his failures. And 10. The audience's sympathy must remain with the coyote. And 11. The coyote is not allowed to catch or eat the Roadrunner. The audience was made to feel legitimate sympathy for the coyote in his ineptitude and unsuccessful plight to catch dinner time and time again. Jones said he was never hurt or in pain, he was insulted, as most of us are when we suffer misfortune. Barrier further said that in the cartoons, the grisliest fate is not to be maimed or killed, but to be embarrassed. With these rules, the Roadrunner and Coyote cartoons became some of the slickest, smartest, and most well-structured series to come out of perhaps any studio during the Golden Age. And while one may argue that restrictions could have hampered creativity, it actually helped the creatives think outside the box. While each short followed the same template, Jones and Maltese found inventive ways within a confined sandbox to tell essentially the same joke over and over again, but with hundreds of different outcomes and reactions. In doing so, not only were there endless possibilities for gags, but audiences could be constantly kept on their feet. Jones said, "One of the tricks of this kind of humour is to anticipate where the audience is going to expect something to happen, and then either to not do it then and let them relax a little bit and then hit them, or do it before they're quite ready for it." Some historians argue that these rules weren't as strict as Jones would have us believe, or were non-existent at the time of production. Maltese is even quoted as saying, "If we had laws or anything, I never heard of them." Perhaps this was a subconscious thing for Jones, who credited himself with most of the gag work, saying that Maltese found it difficult to get a hold on the characters, or it was just something he saw in hindsight. Regardless, a vast majority of the shorts and gags do tick all the boxes and show a very clear formula, one which had never quite been seen before, but has been replicated thousands of times since. We briefly interrupt this video with a message from our sponsor. Are you sick of your slow, buggy, free VPN that doesn't work like it's supposed to? Over being bombarded by dangerous pop-ups and paranoid that sneaky coyotes are lurking in every corner of the internet, keeping records of your private browsing and stealing your private information? Tired of not being able to watch that brand new series of cartoon shorts that are geo-blocked to a specific region? Well, I've got the answer to all your problems. Please allow me to introduce you to NordVPN. NordVPN is an incredibly powerful virtual private network with super fast servers that allow you to switch between 60 different countries and will get you around the web quicker than a Roadrunner. This means by connecting to an overseas server, you can unlock your favorite entertainment websites and streaming services, including Netflix, and access content that may be geo-blocked in your country, such as that brand new series of cartoons on that brand new streaming service that you're so desperate to see. NordVPN also offers incredible protection both at home and in public, doesn't log your data, and has an option for double data encryption for increased anonymity. Additionally, it's loaded with a cybersec suite which acts as an ad blocker to keep those pesky internet coyotes away. It's compatible with most operating systems, including macOS and Windows, can be used on all of your devices, and has an extension for Chrome browser which is lightweight and user-friendly from the first click. If you'd like to get access to NordVPN, just head over to nordvpn.org/Dave Lee, or click the link down in the description and comments, where I'm offering an incredibly special deal where you can get 70% off a 3-year plan, only amounting to $3.49 a month. Additionally, if you sign up now using the coupon code Dave Lee as one word, we'll throw in an extra month for free. If you're unhappy with the service at any point during your first month, Nord are offering a 30-day money-back guarantee. So again, for access to all of this and more, that's nordvpn.org/Dave Lee, and use the coupon code Dave Lee for an extra month free. Can we get back to the video now, Dave? Of course we can, Dave. Great. Take it away, Dave. Jones and Maltese had so much fun experimenting with these cartoons and characters, they began featuring the Coyote in 2 other series. Firstly, he was featured across 5 Bugs Bunny cartoons, beginning with 1952's Operation Rabbit, the first to present Wile E's full name, and ending with 1963's Hairbreadth Hurry. These shorts gave the opportunity to play around with the character free of rules, with each of the shorts breaking practically all of them. Here the Coyote appears more cunning and conniving, but also a lot stupider. While he'd be seen concocting even more elaborate and sinister traps, usually his own genius inventions and not those from Acme, they backfire on him in even more ridiculous ways, and rarely of his own failure, but usually with the intervention of the pesky Bugs, who the audience usually sided with. Most notably, however, the character could actually talk in these cartoons, and was given a debonair British accent. Though this doesn't exactly work very well. As we're so familiar with him as a silent star, the character loses something so inherently special. Secondly, he appeared as a red-nosed wolf named Ralph in a series of 7 Ralph Wolf and Sam Sheepdog cartoons, beginning with 1953's Don't Give Up the Sheep and ending with 1963's Woolen Underwear. In these shorts, he goes up against a sheepdog and attempts to pester or distract him with the aid of various contraptions in order to steal his sheep. With this series, Jones and Maltese could experiment with the opposite of the chase, with Jones writing, "The Roadrunner is moving all the time and at great speed. I therefore wanted the wolf's opponent not to move at all." Jones admitted that while all 3 variants of the Coyote were completely different characters, they were essentially the same guy, comparing him to an actor playing 3 different parts in live-action films. Looney Tunes characters as actors certainly wasn't a foreign idea, with shorts as early as 1940's You Ought to Be in Pictures presenting them as such, and Jones's 1950's Daffy Duck and Porky Pig cartoons seeing them acting in various parodies. Together, Jones and Maltese produced a total of 16 Roadrunners between 1949 and 1959, upon which time Maltese moved to Hanna-Barbera to write for such series as Huckleberry Hound, Quick Draw McGraw, Yogi Bear, Wacky Races, and The Flintstones. Jones produced a further 13 Roadrunners, either alone or with writer John Dunn, including 1961's Beep Prepared, the only to be nominated for an Academy Award. With the dominance of television emerging during their run on the Roadrunner and Coyote shorts, in 1962, Jones and Dunn produced a pilot for a possible companion series to the popular Bugs Bunny show. Adventures of the Roadrunner was devised to showcase a selection of brand new shorts with specially created bridging sequences. Unfortunately, no network picked it up, and the 3 original shorts produced for it, To Beep or Not to Beep, Roadrunner A Go-Go, and Zip Zip Hooray, were released separately between 1963 and 1965. In 1963, it was found that Jones had broken his exclusivity contract with Warner's by sneakily writing feature animation Gay Purrie for UPA Animation, and he was forced to leave the studio. His last Roadrunner and Coyote short was 1964's War and Pieces. As a result, Jones's entire team was laid off too. However, this was a fairly timely departure, given that not long after, Warner Brothers closed their animation studio completely and sacked the rest of the staff. Friz Freleng and Warner's executive David H. DePatie then formed their own animation house, DePatie Freleng Enterprises, and leased the animation plant on the Warner lot as their headquarters. Still wanting to distribute cartoons alongside their features, however, Warner's contracted the pair to continue the Looney Tunes series. Reportedly produced on half the budget and in the low-quality limited animation style, the DePatie Freleng shorts are considered the worst of the Looney Tunes, with Moulton calling them abysmal and fellow animation historian Jerry Beck shaming them as lazy, flat, a disappointment, and a bore. Out of 60 brand new Looney Tunes shorts, 14 were Roadrunner and Coyotes, while 2 were directed by Robert McKimson at DePatie Freleng, 11 were directed by Rudy Lariva at Format Films, a third-party studio on subcontract. As the backgrounds of the Golden Age Roadrunner and Coyote shorts were already stylized, simplistic, and somewhat limited to begin with, the difference in quality between the new and classic shorts wasn't as stark as it was for DePatie Freeling's Daffy Ducks. Despite jerkier animation and less detailed characters, visually there's very little differentiation. The narrative and comedic qualities, on the other hand, did take an enormously noticeable nosedive, with the new shorts throwing away Jones's rules and principles entirely. For example, the very first DePatie Freeling short, 1965's The Wild Chase, took the pair into the habitat of humankind and teamed them up with Sylvester the Cat and Speedy Gonzales, who do truly feel like intruders. Later shorts introduced improvisations instead of relying on the Acme Company, with Jones calling many of them dismal and stupid. Further groaning, all they had to do was ask. I was here, I could have told them. Moulton noted that by throwing away Jones's methods, they destroyed the mythology and modus operandi that he worked so long to establish. Likewise, the humour in these shorts was unfunny and unintelligent. They mostly relied on recycled gags with unoriginal and uninspired payoffs. They are pale, predictable imitations, shells of what they once were. In 1967, however, Warner's once again decided to produce cartoons in-house and terminated the contract 3 years in. Freeling's 1966 short, Sugar and Spies, brought an end not only to the DePatie Freeling Roadrunner and Coyote run, but to the series as a whole. That same year, Roadrunner and the Coyote finally made the jump to television, with CBS's The Roadrunner Show. Much like The Bugs Bunny Show, it was an anthology series featuring classic cartoons produced during Jones's tenure, as well as other classics tied together with new bridging sequences. In 1968, CBS combined both the Roadrunner and Bugs Bunny shows to form the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner Hour. After 3 years of this format, ABC bought the rights to the Roadrunner show, airing it in its original half-hour runtime. In 1975, however, ABC additionally acquired the Bugs Bunny show and once again combined them, making the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner Show, which aired on the network for 10 years until 1985. On the back of the TV series' success, in 1979, Roadrunner shared billing with Bugs on the big screen in Warner's package feature, The Bugs Bunny Roadrunner Movie, which combined a collection of Jones's shorts, including highlights from various Roadrunner and Coyote cartoons. Likewise, numerous classic shorts were bundled into 2 TV specials, 1979's Bugs Bunny's Thanksgiving Diet and 1980's The Bugs Bunny Mystery Special. Additionally, the duo appeared in their very first original shorts in 13 years, in 2 more TV specials. 1979's Bugs Bunny's Looney Christmas Tales featured Freeze Frame, which took place in a snowy, frozen alpine landscape, and 1980's Bugs Bunny's Bustin' Out All Over featured Soup or Sonic, which depicted the Coyote's only canonical capture of Roadrunner. Jones was at the helm for the first time in 15 years, and despite these minor rule breaks, which he employed cleverly and within logical reason, the shorts marked a return to form, utilising classically inspired gags, adhering to Jones's original principles. Throughout this period, the impact of the characters on popular culture was practically inescapable. They appeared on numerous television commercials for big-name brands across the decades, and in 1968, Plymouth licensed the Roadrunner name and license for $50,000 for their new low-priced muscle car named the Plymouth Roadrunner. The car featured Roadrunner decals, a Coyote Duster air cleaner, and a specially developed horn which emulated the Roadrunner's trademark sound. The car remained in production until 1980. In 1979, Columbia Pictures released The Villain, known as Cactus Jack in some territories, a film often described as a live-action Looney Tunes cartoon, which parodied classic Warner shorts, particularly the Roadrunners. Starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and Anne Margaret alongside Kirk Douglas as a humanized version of the Coyote, the film includes characters with the names Jones and Avery, and even features the Merry Melodies theme in one scene. Film critic Gene Siskel remarked, "Villain is like Roadrunner but isn't funny," criticizing it for stealing classic gags frame for frame and observing that they didn't work in a flesh and blood movie. The duo did, however, appear in a flesh and blood movie that did work in 1988, Disney's live-action animation hybrid Who Framed and Roger Rabbit, a far better love letter to the golden age of animation. Despite being set in 1947 and director Robert Zemeckis' fairly strict rules that no pre-47 cartoons appear in the movie, he was such a fan of the iconic duo that he made an exception to give them 2 incredibly small cameos. Cameos, in fact, made up the vast majority of the characters' appearances in the 1990s and early 2000s. They both appeared in numerous episodes of Tiny Toon Adventures and its 1992 spin-off film Tiny Toons How I Spent My Summer Vacation. Here the two acted as mentors to Calamity Coyote and Little Beeper, essentially childlike renders of them. Wile-E even appeared in one episode, strangely, with a grey coat. They also appeared in numerous episodes of Animaniacs, one of which saw the coyote appear by himself, as he did in a 2004 episode of Duck Dodgers, where he was seen preying on Marvin the Martian. The Roadrunner likewise appeared alone in a 1991 episode of Tasmania. The two additionally appeared regularly during musical sequences of Baby Looney Tunes in babified designs. In another strange design twist, the two briefly appeared in a 2004 episode of What's New Scooby-Doo, where the coyote appeared with no ears and blue eyes. The futuristic descendants of the pair featured more heavily in the Lunatics Unleashed series, as core members of the Lunatics team. Tech-E Coyote was the team's tech and gadget expert, while the Rev Runner was a super-powered team member with the abilities to travel at sonic speed and fly, the only member who didn't need to use a jetpack. Also notable in this period is a non-canon late 90s commercial for Cartoon Network's Acme Hour block, which saw the coyote catch the Roadrunner aided by non-Acme branded skates. The ad featured the tagline,
"Because another brand wouldn't be the same."
Throughout the 2000s, they also appeared in Flash animated form in a number of webtoons. On the big screen, 1994 saw the release of Chariots of Fur, which screened alongside Richie Rich as part of a handful of 90s Looney Tunes revival shorts. It was the first theatrical Roadrunner and Coyote directed by Jones in 32 years, and his final ever. 1996's Superior Duck, another Jones revival short, also featured the pair in cameos. 2000's Little Go Beep, their only theatrical cartoon of the 2000s, featured the characters again in infant designs. In 1996's hybrid feature film Space Jam, they appeared in supporting roles as members of the Toon Squad, teaming up with basketball superstar Michael Jordan and other Looney Tunes to save the Earth against alien invaders. Likewise, they appeared, albeit very briefly, in 2003's follow-up film Looney Tunes Back in Action, where Coyote is seen as an Acme employee. Following the film's poor box office reception, a number of planned shorts were pulled from theatrical distribution, including 2003's The Wizard of Owl, the first Roadrunner and Coyote cartoon produced following Jones's death in 2002. The short was instead released as a bonus feature on the film's DVD. In 2006's straight-to-home media movie Bah Humduck, A Looney Tunes Christmas, a Looney retelling of Dickens' A Christmas Carol, the pair appeared as employees of the Lucky Duck Superstore, run by Daffy in the role of Ebenezer Scrooge. In 2010, the duo returned to theatrical cartoon, for the first time in computer-animated designs. These shorts, Coyote Falls, Fur of Flying, and Rabbit Rider, were released alongside numerous family films, and produced in 3D to capitalize on the then-rife Hollywood craze. A fourth, Flash in the Pane, was held from release and debuted at the 2014 Annecy International Animated Film Festival. Likewise, shown at the end of various first season episodes of The Looney Tunes Show were a collection of 19 CG animated shorts, produced in a much simpler limited CG animation. These featured the characters in modernized redesigns, as they took on a wackier and zanier feel. The characters also appeared sporadically in the show itself, in traditional variants of their new designs. The pair saw yet another modernised design for 2015's new Looney Tunes, called Wabbit, in its first season. During this first season, the Coyote made regular appearances as Bugs' know-it-all neighbour, who constantly irritates him with his competitive nature, inspired by Jones and Maltese's Bugs and Coyote shorts. The Roadrunner began making intermittent appearances from season 2 onwards. Here the two appeared in incredibly exaggerated designs, seemingly inspired by the zany screwball styles of Clampett and Tex Avery. The duo are currently appearing in HBO Max's series of Looney Tunes cartoons, which are heavily inspired by the classic shorts in terms of both character design and narrative structure. They will also appear in HBO Max's Tuned Out, an upcoming hybrid project produced by Roger Rabbit Zemeckis, and in the upcoming 2021 Space Jam sequel, Space Jam: A New Legacy, starring LeBron James. Another hybrid film titled Coyote vs. Acme is also reportedly in production, with Lego Batman director Chris McKay producing, though whether this actually eventuates or falls into production hell like so many other planned Looney movies is anyone's guess. Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner, like many Looney Tunes, remain as popular today as when they first debuted, standing out arguably as Chuck Jones's greatest creations. Jones's structure for the shorts not only revolutionized the chase formula, but cartoons as a whole, making such tropes as falling anvils, cliff drops, exploding dynamite, smashed silhouettes, and blackout gags stereotypical elements so commonplace in animation to this day. And to think it was all a happy accident, started by a mere one-shot workaday cartoon parody. And at that, I'm throwing it over to you guys out there. I want to know, what are your favourite Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner appearances? Fire away down in the comments below and let me know your thoughts. If this is your first time viewing one of my videos and you'd like to see more like it in the future, then please don't forget to hit that big old subscribe button up on your screen, as well as that like button down below for that little extra support. Also, don't forget to check me out on social media, and please consider supporting me over on Patreon. Thanks for watching and have a fantastic day.